Well, there's an update, which is verbal,
Right.
and then
Which one are we going to have a colorist?
right here, public comment.
Public comment? Okay.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get our meeting started, and we will start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. So if you'd please stand.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see from the dais here, we have some unusual circumstances. My fellow council members are not in attendance this evening. They are here with us by phone, teleconferencing, and the reason for that is obvious. I'm sure you're all aware of the crisis that the county is facing, and in deference to that, we thought it best that we keep our council members home and safe and healthy, and we set an example for the rest of the community. The Board of Supervisors in Ventura County did the same thing this morning, as our city councils all across the state. So with that, let me ask for the roll call, please.
Councilmember Engler?
Here.
Councilmember Jones?
Here.
Councilmember McCoy?
You there, Rob?
Councilmember McCoy? Mayor Pro Tem Bill De La Pena? Mayor Pro Tem Bill De La Pena?
All right, well, shall we take a minute here and find out what's the situation with our teleconferencing?
Okay, I cannot hear anything, so I'm going to say here.
I'm present. I can't hear anything.
I don't hear anything at all.
All right, well, we hear you. Do you hear us?
No, I cannot hear the meeting.
All right,
Melissa.
well,
No.
we're going to fix that. Stand by.
Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor.
I only hear Rob talking.
Take a
That's
brief,
me.
take a brief 5-minute recess so we can.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, as so often happens, we do have some technical difficulties. We're going to take a 5-minute break and get this all squared away. Thank you. All right, well, just a moment. Okay, we're back on, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've ironed out our difficulties here, so we're going to go with the roll call again, if you please. City Clerk.
Councilmember Engler,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember McCoy,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bill Dela Pena,
Present.
Mayor Adam.
And I'm here. Good. It sounds like all my colleagues are here on teleconferencing with us, and they're watching their screens so they can follow what's happening. And we're going to scrap our agenda for this evening and deal strictly with the health crisis that we're facing here in the city of Thousand Oaks and Ventura County. And we're going to get to that. But before we do, I want to call for public comments. I want the city clerk to call for public comments, actually.
This is a time and place for public comments. A speaker card is available for those wishing to address the city council regarding items on the agenda or on a subject within the city's jurisdiction. All remarks should be addressed to the council as a whole, and all documents for city council and the official record should be presented to the city clerk prior to speaking. Speakers are requested to state their name and community of residence for the record. Under state law, public comment matters may not be considered by the council unless listed on the agenda, but may be referred to the city manager for administrative follow-up. 3 individuals have requested to speak. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. The yellow light will display, and you will have 1 minute remaining.
And the speakers are also calling in this evening, and I hope you're hearing me. And first, we'd like to hear from Luann Kerouac. Luann, can you hear us?
Okay.
Luann?
Hello?
Is that Luann Kerouac?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Luann Kerouac. Thank you so much for taking my call. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Taking my call. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear
I
you.
can't hear anyone,
Go ahead.
but everyone can hear me. You can hear anyone. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. The reason why I was calling is because I am a healthcare administrator. I have been for the past 20 years, and I'm just voicing my thoughts on
Everybody needs to mute their phones.
coronavirus. Basically, I am really pleading with the council to really take a stance, even though the federal government is not, and mandating that unless it's necessary for people to be able to go out of their homes, obviously for pharmacies or healthcare needs, or if they need groceries, this epidemic, this pandemic that we have going on right now it's in a trajectory that's going in a horrible place. Right now, as it stands, there have been 1,800 new cases in the United States alone. We are only 1,000 cases right now behind France. And I understand that, we're in Ventura County and the numbers don't look the same that they do in Los Angeles. However, it's going to be in that same place very, very soon. And we are going to have a healthcare crisis on our hands. We have healthcare workers that are sick. We have people that are separated from their families in the healthcare industry that are self-quarantining, that have family members at home. And if we don't have the healthcare people to take care of the people who are sick, then we're really going to be in a lot of trouble. And I do know, obviously, there's a lot of economic things that need to be in consideration to this. But at the same time, the economics aren't going to matter if you don't have people alive that can actually take care of things for everyone in the community. And I really just am pleading with our city council that even though the federal government is not doing enough to protect our communities and the people of all ages, that we as an individual community need to do what we can to flatten this disease and the outcome that it's going to have. It's just a matter of time before neighborhoods are going to be with people in their households that unfortunately have passed away or are very sick from coronavirus. And that is basically the reason for my call this evening.
All right. Thank you, Luann. Next up, we have Elizabeth Buonvicino.
Okay, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Elizabeth Buonvicino. Can you hear me, Elizabeth? Just a moment. Elizabeth
Okay. Hi, my
Bonvicino.
name is Elizabeth Bonvicino.
Very good.
I live in an apartment in Thousand Oaks. My husband's a painter, and he's lost work due to the coronavirus. I know Governor Newsom signed an executive order allowing local authorities to enact a moratorium on evictions for renters who cannot pay rent due to their loss of work, also including a moratorium on utilities being shut off until May 30th, 2020. And Mayor Eric Garcetti has enacted this moratorium for Los Angeles, and I'm requesting that our Thousand Oaks mayor do the same. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are addressing part of that this evening. And finally, we have Bruce Hamilton.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
Good evening, Council. First, the top of the evening to you, and happy St. Paddy's Day. It happens that my heritage is Scot-Irish. That means that I like to drink, but I don't want to pay for it. Let me start by saying that in 1969, I moved from the town of Ohio called Sylvania, where I was a volunteer at the fire department. President Reagan once said, "The difference between democracy and communism is our volunteers." As I did in Ohio, I embraced that concept over and over again here in the Conejo Valley, starting with acquaintances like Alex Fiore and Carol Bowen, Chuck Cohen, Grant Brimhall, Tony Lamb, it goes Judy Lazar, and even Ed Jones, and several others, of course. As such, I served as the City Council's ad hoc committee on social services. I did that for over 12 years. I was an arts commissioner for 5 years, and I spent 7 years as a volunteer for the Stagecoach Inn and served as a Jungle Land curator. I was also privileged to work with Supervisor Jones on his Ombudsman Committee, where I was allowed to join two fine ladies and started a thing called the Conejo Free Clinic, and became the first president. With more than 50 years of living in the same house, I have watched Thousand Oaks grow from 22,000 people to over 130,000 residents, and I continue to give service to the community wherever I was welcomed. I can remember being in various councils from over at 1400 block of Thousand Oaks Boulevard and all the way through all the other places that you were at before you moved to Jungle Land. I was lured to the Conejo Valley by the advertising of American Hawaiian, that this is the city in the country. I also heard the admonishment of the people and the citizens here over and over again that this is not to become another San Fernando Valley with endless miles of streets, stores, and concrete buildings and parking lots. Recently, the city furnished an aerial view of the news in the news media to show the concept of the so-called improvements which will allow us to see the green grass of the lakes next door, along with a serene water feature in buildings tucked away behind it. Right across the street, Mr. Hogan donated the Gardens of the World and perpetuated the concept that green is better than concrete, and so are the fountains. Although I applaud the time and efforts of the various council members and staff, I'm compelled to offer my own observations from what I see in the media. First, the expenditure of $1.4 million to begin the conceptual designs, and another $500,000 to draw more pictures and talk to people like Rick Caruso about
Bruce, your time is up, actually. Appreciate your thoughts. And thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for making your comments this evening. Let me lay out what we have on the agenda this evening. First, we're going to talk with our city manager, Drew Powers, and he's going to give us the latest from Ventura County Public Health. We have some new pertinent information that we want to share with you. Then we're going to go to our city attorney, Tracy Noonan. She's going to talk about the emergency declaration that we want to ratify later in the evening for my fellow council members. This is to protect our public health. We can't eliminate all the risk, but we can certainly work to diminish it. It's going to take social solidarity and compliance from the citizens of Thousand Oaks, because as one of the speakers mentioned, we need to flatten that infection curve so we can save some lives and we don't overburden our hospitals. So with that, let me go to our city manager, Powers, and he's going to tell us the latest from the county.
Thank you so much, Mayor Adam and members of the City Council and the public here and watching at home. Wanted to take a few moments to give you updates as to where things stand both here within the City of Thousand Oaks and in Ventura County. Obviously, we are dealing with unprecedented circumstances. And that said, I want to reassure our residents that your city team, the County of Ventura, and our partners are prepared and working very closely together. It's also important to understand that this is a unique crisis. And our role within a unique crisis that deals with a public health emergency means we are heavily reliant on the county's public health department. The health and safety of our residents is our top priority. And currently in Ventura County, there are 10 cases, positive and presumptive positive, of COVID-19. There are 193 people that have been tested to date, and those numbers are updated as new information is released. To maintain our priority on health and safety, our municipal operations are fully operational under modified staffing configurations, procedures, and other changes that I'll speak to in just a few moments. City staff is working to answer phones, return emails, and conduct business in a socially distant environment utilizing technology, and that does include remote work as it does for so many other businesses. There are a wide variety of city services available to you virtually, and you can find a full list of those on our website, which I will repeat a few times. We have a special section of our website, toaks.org/COVID-19, and that's updated almost hourly. Our libraries are fully operational in a virtual setting, despite being closed to the public. They've also got a call-in reference line, and you can find details on that through our library website, tolibrary.org. I want to take a couple moments to address the latest, both from Ventura County and from the broader statewide conditions. Within the last couple of hours, the County of Ventura Health Officer has issued a formal order that does a number of things, and I want to step through those things. First, following guidance that came on Sunday evening from Governor Newsom, the County Public Health Director in Ventura County has taken the formal step of closing restaurants and food facilities to indoor dining, but allowing for delivery and pickup for takeout and drive-through. So the closure of restaurants and food facilities to indoor dining. Secondly, the closure of bars and nightclubs that do not serve food, and movie theaters, gyms, fitness centers, and aquatic centers. Again, bars and nightclubs, movie theaters, gyms, fitness centers, and aquatic centers. Third, the order puts into place a mandatory order of all individuals living in the county 75 years of age and older and 70 years and older with underlying conditions to shelter in place in their residence until April the 1st. Narrow exceptions apply for medical care, nutrition, essential work, and outdoor exercise. But again, those 75 years and older and those 70 to 75 with underlying medical conditions. Non-essential county facilities will close to the public as of tomorrow. Thousand Oaks City Hall will follow suit and close to the public tomorrow morning as well. Our employees will still be here and working in varying capacities, as I mentioned earlier, to continue delivering service. Many of them will be deployed to assisting in various aspects of this local emergency. Testing for this virus is an ongoing consideration, locally, statewide, and across the nation. And I'm sure everyone has read about that in the news. With limited test kits available in Ventura County, only those meeting criteria for testing will be tested. That said, the county has and will continue to deploy remote testing locations and private sector opportunities across the county. That will include a drive-through location that will be sited in Thousand Oaks at the Conejo Clinic later this week. A COVID-19 hotline for community members with questions will be up and running through 211 by 5 p.m. tomorrow night. Again, 211 will have a special COVID-19 hotline able to answer questions from community members. That said, there are multiple places to seek information and get your questions answered that I'll list for you in just a couple of minutes. Public Health is also establishing a 24/7 on-call service for physicians in Ventura County that have questions about diagnosing patients and how to deal with testing. It will be up and running tomorrow as well. This is a ton of information. Things are evolving pretty consistently, and I know it's a lot to digest. The best overall clearinghouse for information in this county is vcemergency.com. Again, vcemergency.com is the same site that you probably utilize during fire emergencies and otherwise. That site is the single best clearinghouse for information on this. Finally, as I was coming down this evening, I was listening to the governor's press conference. One of the bigger takeaways from that press conference, and probably on the minds of many of you at home, certainly as it is for me with a 2-year-old at my house, is when are schools going to reopen, in my case, preschools. The governor was pretty candid in stating that there is an anticipation that schools may not reopen before summer. And I think that's just an important note for everyone to be thinking about. That's the most common question that's coming forth is, how long will this all last? And while none of us really have the answer to that question specifically, we are all working to prepare ourselves for what's going to be a period of disruption that will last more than just a couple of weeks. So what can you do? First of all, common sense. Simple, calm, focused common sense. There's a lot been said about all of the elements of hygiene and CDC guidelines, and that information is all listed through the various channels. But at the end of the day, common sense should rule. Hand washing, maintain social distance guidelines. Stay in your home as much as you can, as much as you're able to in the coming weeks. If you are ill or caring for someone that is ill, stay home except to seek medical care. Contact your physician for guidance if you're concerned about the symptoms. And keep in mind that test kits are in high demand with little supply as of right now. This means many seeking a test will not receive them at this time unless they meet certain criteria. I received a statement both from two key partners that I had agreed to read just so folks could hear from our hospital and from our Chamber of Commerce, two important partners. So I'm going to read just briefly the statement from Los Robles Hospital. This is uncharted territory, but we have been working together with Ventura County Public Health and the Centers for Disease Control for all scenarios. We want to reassure the public that we have a surge plan in place should it come to that. The public is our partner, and we simply ask that they keep informed and follow CDC guidelines, which include hand hygiene and social distancing. Our COVID-19 preparedness efforts include reinforcing infection prevention protocols and guidance from the CDC, sourcing necessary supplies and equipment, and emergency planning, so our hospitals are prepared to safely meet the needs of all our patients and protect the health and well-being of our colleagues. On behalf of all Los Robles Health System, we thank the community for their ongoing support and understanding. We realize that these are stressful and unprecedented times, especially when caring for a loved one. We have been touched by the outpouring of care and concern for our staff, even the thoughtful offer of child care for our healthcare professionals. Understandably, we expect nothing less from this community. The safety of our patients is our utmost priority, and remember, together we are TO strong. And a quick statement from the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. Some of the restrictions that I listed earlier and the impacts associated with this are going to have a tremendous impact on small business. And they have been working with us in addressing these challenges over the last number of days, and appreciate their support. As our entire community navigates through the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce is asking residents to rally support for our small businesses and nonprofits through these uncertain times. For the businesses that call Conejo Valley home, they do more than just work here. Business owners and employees live and raise their families here. So as we all make our personal decisions about how to move forward in the next weeks and months, know that our business community is doing the same. A few ways the community can support local business. Continue to support retailers and restaurants offering takeout and delivery service. Make an online purchase from a local business. Consider purchasing gift cards or booking a future service. Keep your memberships active, such as gyms and massage services. Donate or support a local nonprofit organization. Business resources are available at ConejoChamber.org. They have an FAQ page, sources of financial support, and wage replacement options and extended paid family leave and disability benefit information. The Chamber's Foundation will be launching a fund in the coming days, giving small businesses and nonprofits an opportunity to apply for a grant to assist with unrestricted operating expenses. The fund will start with a $20,000 commitment from the Chamber Foundation, and additional funds will be raised through our corporate partners for distribution. Our professionally staffed team is here to support all businesses through this very fluid situation. We thank you in advance for your continued support of our business community. Appreciate those notes from both our hospital partner and our chamber partner. As I wrap up my comments, communication is key in this evolving situation. We have updates that are provided, as I mentioned, almost hourly through our website and our various social media channels, and that will continue. For county public health updates, vcemergency.com is your resource. You should bookmark it and visit it when you have questions. vcemergency.com. The city's website at toaks.org has a dedicated page for information and resources for residents and businesses, and that will continue to be updated as well, focused on Thousand Oaks. That's toaks.org/COVID-19. Finally, we are operating in an emergency management framework within the city organization. I'm very proud of the men and women that work for this organization and their dedication. We've been out this 7 days a week for the last several weeks. Our goal for you is to be a clear, concise conduit of information. There's going to be a lot of information flowing, and people are understandably overwhelmed by that. We're trying to distill it down, focus locally, and be that support for our community. With that, I'll hand it over to City Attorney Noonan to speak about the resolution ratification of our emergency declaration.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight for Council's consideration is a resolution ratifying the proclamation of the existence of a local emergency and rendering certain emergency orders. As generally discussed by City Manager Powers, on March 4th, the governor declared a state of emergency due to the public health impacts from COVID-19. On March 12th, the Ventura County Public Health Officer declared a public health emergency. Subsequently, on March 12th, the City of Thousand Oaks Director of Emergency Services issued a proclamation and order proclaiming the existence of a local emergency. Pursuant to state law, this proclamation is valid for only 7 days unless ratified by the City Council. Before you tonight is the resolution ratifying that declaration, and it does several things, particularly if you look at the supplement that was issued by the City Clerk today. First, it satisfies the statutory requirements for council ratification of the emergency proclamation. Second, it permits the city to impose mandates and directives consistent with federal, state, and local laws. Third, it authorizes requests for mutual aid and requests for reimbursement by FEMA. Fourth, it allows the city to procure goods and services in an expeditious manner during this emergency. Fifth, it orders the closure of all city facilities to the public starting tomorrow. Sixth, it authorizes the city manager, as the director of emergency services, to issue subsequent orders and regulations necessary for the protection of life and property consistent with federal, state, and local regulations. And seventh, it orders a temporary moratorium on residential tenant evictions for non-payment due to COVID-19. With that, I will hand it back to the mayor for final comments, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Noonan. Thank you, Mr. Powers. I want to thank both of you for the time and effort you put into this public health crisis. It's been a 24/7 endeavor on both your parts, as well as the executive team and staff, and I appreciate all the time that you put into this. I'm going to make a few comments, and I want to go to my colleagues for questions. And I'd just like to say that this is not the first challenging set of circumstances that the city of Thousand Oaks has faced. But time and time again, we've risen to meet the challenge. We've answered it with strength and with dignity. And now it's a time for our city to come together and work on something that's very different than what we experienced so far, but something that we can conquer. The health situation, as Mr. Powers said, is changing by the hour, but the outcomes ultimately depend on us. So I'm asking the public to be mindful of the people around you, your neighbors, your friends, your relatives. If they need help, if they need additional food, if they need resources, help them out, because we all have to pull together in this effort. We're monitoring the situation 24/7. And we're certainly working with the county health department to share information at all times. In fact, it's fortunate we had a council meeting scheduled for this evening because, as Mr. Powers noted, the regulations coming from the county, those just came out just a few hours ago. So we were glad to be able to share that with you so quickly. And typical of the citizens of Thousand Oaks, there's some very nice stories that are happening already that I'd like to just share with you briefly. We all know our former police chief, Tim Hagel, a wonderful guy. He's made it his life's work to help people here in the city of Thousand Oaks. He just delivered 200 sack lunches to children who are out of school, and through his Safe Passage program. Thank you for that, Tim. He delivered a pallet of diapers to those in need, and he's delivered food to various homeless individuals in the area. Checking with our vulnerable populations is very important, and we appreciate this extraordinary act of humanity, and I know that we can count on Tim for more. Our library staff has given out books to students at school lunch sites. Of course, they respect social distancing, but an environment that can be very scary for children, I think it's really good to have a smiling librarian hand a book to a young child to help calm the path ahead for them. We've got high school and college kids that have a time on their hands, and we've seen dozens of them jump into action volunteering to deliver meals for the senior nutrition program, and that program is very critical to the health and well-being of seniors, and we're very grateful that the students are sustaining that program. And finally, Ventura County Community Foundation, which has been so helpful in some of the other crises that we've passed through, have established a rapid response fund for Ventura County. And you can get to that with very simply with vccf.org. This fund's going to support nonprofit organizations. It's going to address the needs of individuals and families with food and housing support, child care, wage replacement, mental health care, and more. The fund's also going to support small businesses, and we've already had some substantial donations to this fund. So as time goes on, there's going to be many opportunities in the community to volunteer your time in a safe way, of course, to benefit those around you. Hopefully you'll be looking for those opportunities. The state of California has a website. It's called serve.ca.gov, and through there you can apply to deliver meals, you can apply to donate, to volunteer at food banks, wellness checks, blood donations, all the kind of things that we need to get through this. And so I'm calling on everyone in the city. Let's join our resources. Let's help our neighbors, help those that are most vulnerable. And together we can get through this thing. We can weather this storm and make sure that the deep roots we have in our community become even stronger. We had a saying, and some of the other problems that we've had here in the city, TO strong, and that applies now. Let's make TO strong. Social solidarity. Let's comply what's being asked of us, and we'll get through this together. So, with that, I would like to now go to my colleagues and ask for questions, and I'd like to take. All right. Okay. I'd like to take them in order, and if we could start with Mayor Pro Tem Claudia Bildo de Pena. Claudia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Do you have some questions or comments that you'd care to make?
We have a little bit of a delay. Yes.
I see. Okay. Well, we can deal with that.
So please bear with me. I do have a couple of questions now with the new order that was issued by Dr. Robert Levin from the Ventura County Public Health Department regarding
Claudia, I have to interrupt you for just a moment. Claudia.
Over the age of 70 with underlying.
Go ahead. We're just getting a little static in the background, that's all.
That's probably because other phones were unmuted. Maybe they can be muted.
Yeah, if my fellow council members would mute their phones, we'll be able to hear Claudia better.
Okay, I'm going to try again. With the new orders.
Can you turn the volume down on the TV, please? That might help.
Over the age of 70 and 75. I'm already receiving questions from residents. What do they do if they have to go see the doctor, or if they have to go to the hairdresser, for example? Although, of course, going to the hairdresser may not be as vital as seeing the doctor. Do we know whether exceptions are made for certain errands?
Yeah, I'll address that, Mayor Pro Tem. The order states that exemptions shall only exist as necessary to seek medical care, nutrition, or to perform essential work in health care or government.
Thank you. And then it's kind of hard to hear with all of the noise and the feedback in the background.
Try turning your TV down a little bit.
Yeah, we already did. But then I can't hear you, Mr. Mayor, if I turn it down completely.
Well,
just
go ahead with your comments. We hear you.
Well, I did have other comments, but perhaps we can go to my colleagues now.
All right. Very good. Councilmember McCoy, would you like to have a question or a comment?
No, I'm fine. Just make sure the other council members mute their phone. I'm listening.
All right, very good. Councilmember Engler?
Thank you, Mayor.
We hear you.
Can you hear me, Mayor?
We hear you, yes.
Thank you for nodding, City Manager. I think that we have to take a moment and just reflect on where we have been in the past. I think we can all remember back to 9/11. We can all remember back to other incidences as recent as the Woolsey fire and also our borderline. These were incidents where we pulled together as a community. We now have another opportunity to pull together to assist in this medical issue that's occurring within not only our community, but state but also the country. I think the way that I know that many of us have approached it is not try to solve the entire problem ourselves, but to look for ways to assist. I'm glad that you mentioned the volunteer website from California that will allow people to sign up. There's local organizations that come to mind. The Senior Concerns is very interested in helping those seniors who are now sequestered in their homes. There are my charity with the Red Cross. They are helping with delivering meals to children who are on the meals program at school and no longer can receive it. There are a lot of charities locally that you can take a piece of this problem and help solve it. So I urge everyone to do just that, in that they would find a place they can help and use their time and energy to help solve this problem. So in terms of the ordinance that we're looking at passing, happy to see that we'll have workers that will be affected our employees, both in terms of having them work away from the location and do our social distancing, but also those employees who are going to be hurt financially by this.
I'll take that. I think I heard enough of that to understand what the root of the question is, and it is in relation to how are we handling our employees during this unprecedented time. So we've been planning for this with business continuity plans for the last 3 weeks, and there's a variety of different fronts when you run a municipal corporation, from libraries to engineers and public works. But I would tell you that our employees are all working in varying capacities, from a remote work status to being here in City Hall in a more spaced out capacity. For those that can't see the council chambers tonight, it was set up in preparation for that with staff sitting in separate areas. So we are leveraging a lot of different technologies in order to maintain connections during this time and keep business moving forward, both responding to the immediacy of the crisis, but also focusing on how we're going to emerge out of this crisis as a community with business moving forward. There are impacts to other aspects of our workforce, most notably our part-timers, and we're working closely with them to provide guidance and stay in close communication with them as we move forward. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Engler? I tried to get what I heard of that.
Yes, thank you, City Manager. I think that answered my question as far as the employees go. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Engler. Councilmember Jones. Can you hear us?
Well, can Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
We hear you.
I've been having a little trouble hearing here. I would like to applaud what Member Engler just said and second those items. I've got a little difficulty in when the different items were read. I believe there were 10 or 11 items. I don't want to prolong this, but I'm wondering if Tracy perhaps could very quickly just go through those items again for me.
Certainly.
Sure, happy to. So the resolution that's ratifying the existence of an emergency declaration, you'll see there's obviously a lot of recitals giving the background with respect to the current emergency situation. After the proclamation, once the proclamation is done, there's several orders that the City Council will be issuing. First is, one thing, for example, is that it allows the city to impose mandates and directives that are consistent with federal, state, and local laws. For example, City Manager Powers talked about just within the last, I think, hour, the Ventura County Public Health Officer came out with a new order mandating the self-isolation of those persons 75 years and older. So what our provision and our resolution does is it allows us to enforce that. Another thing that the resolution does is that it authorizes the city to ask for mutual aid, and it also allows us to ask for reimbursement through FEMA. It's kind of a standard order that's put in just about every city's emergency declarations, and it's almost like a formality, but it allows us to ask for mutual aid from other cities, other counties, the state, and it also allows us to request reimbursement for financial outlays for purchases and what have you through FEMA. It allows the city to procure goods and services in an expeditious manner during this emergency. As you are well aware, there is a lot of state law that restricts how government agencies can acquire goods and services. During an emergency, it is very standard for cities, counties, the state to set aside those mandates and allow for cities to expeditiously procure goods, whether it is, water or beds or what have you. It allows the city to do that. Another thing that the resolution does is it orders the closure of all city facilities to the public starting tomorrow. Again, this is in line with what the county just ordered within the last hour or so. City facilities will be closed starting tomorrow. An important provision of the resolution is that it authorizes the city manager as the director of emergency services to issue subsequent orders and regulations necessary for the protection of life and property, consistent with federal, state, and local regulations. As you're all aware, this is a really fluid time. There are guidance issued by the federal government, the state government, CDC, World Health Organization, the county, et cetera, on an almost hourly basis. What this provision does is it gives the city manager, as the director of emergency services, the ability to issue subsequent orders in response to that guidance or those directives without having to convene another city council meeting. And finally, it orders a temporary moratorium on the residential tenant evictions for non-payment due to COVID. And this is in direct response to the executive order issued by the governor last night that is encouraging cities to adopt their own moratoriums to protect those residents who are suffering income challenges based on COVID-19.
Could I ask a question? The one I have has something about price gouging on it. Is that
Yes,
is that still operative, or has that been omitted?
Yes, that I didn't go into that one. That's kind of another one that's kind of a pro forma one that we do with all of our emergencies. It's also a state mandate. We are just reiterating that during the the time that an emergency is in place. We have a municipal code provision that prohibits price gouging, consistent with what the state does. So that is also included in the resolution.
Well, let me just say that I really appreciate all that's being done, and this is kind of hard for me because I've got to turn the TV down. I'm hearing myself twice. My just on a personal note, my normal and automatic reaction to some type of crisis is to go out and do something. You know, go out and go to tell the people door to door, or you know, go sit in the malls. In other words, the idea of doing things indirectly, I believe that's perhaps what we can say for this, and by word of mouth and by telephone and so forth, is a little different. But I feel this crisis very keenly, and I'm reminded of other crises that we have had and that other people have had. I've recently read a biography of Winston Churchill, and they had like 90 days of continuous bombing on London in 1940. And, you know, the people came through. And we're asking the people to do a similar thing now. And it may seem more difficult because it's not dramatic. It's a silent, slow killer we're dealing with. But I believe in some sense we have to not do maybe an active thing that we would want to do, and rather follow all these rules to the letter. And again, I'd like to conclude by applauding all that has been done, and I appreciate the fine remarks of my fellow council members, the city attorney and the city manager and the mayor. And I would just like to salute you for the good work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jones. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have some follow-up?
Yes. Given that we have a lot of late development, is it possible to have some sort of clearinghouse via a city Facebook page where we, such as what Ventura County Public Health is doing, where we can actually answer people's questions with the latest closures, with the latest orders, with locations for COVID testing? And I think Mr. Powers mentioned that it will happen at Clinical Clinic, which I believe is on the grounds next to the Oaks Mall, because we public officials, of course, we try to help with the spreading of correct factual information, but it would also be helpful to have a centralized location, that a clearinghouse of sorts with the chamber or the hospital, where we can actually answer people's questions more directly.
I'm happy to answer that question, Mayor Pro Tem. As I mentioned, we're working very, very closely with our county partners. And as this situation is continuing to evolve, we're moving closer and closer into what's known in the emergency management realm as a joint information center. In a situation like this, the boundaries of our municipal enterprise don't really matter. And while we're all speaking to individual constituencies, the messaging is very, very similar across those bounds. And so our team, headed by Melissa Hurtado and Alexandra South, is working closely with the county's PIO in a joint coordinated fashion and bringing in other communications professionals from cities across the county to share resource and ensure that questions are being answered. To that end, the county, as you referenced, does have a Facebook page that has generated a tremendous following over the course of just several days. Our staff have actually joined that as moderators, and so they are participating and answering questions that have a Thousand Oaks tie and root to it. So we believe that paired with the addition of the 211 call-in line and our work with the Chamber of Commerce on a centralized business resource, puts us in a good position as we move forward. That being said, we evaluate our communication response on a daily basis and make shifts and modifications, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you so much for doing that, and I do appreciate all the city staff is doing, all the volunteers are doing in the city, because we are in uncharted waters, so to speak, fighting a war that is against the silent killer, and so very different. It is something where it's a war that does not allow for direct social contact, and that is very different from anything experienced in the past. So I also want to encourage everybody to please follow the rules and to really try all they can do not to spread anything that they might be carrying. And with that in mind, also, of course, protecting our first responders in this, because they will be the first ones and are already on the front lines with this. And if we all can just stick together, say a prayer, follow the rules, we will be able to get through this over the next few months.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other questions or comments before we ask for a vote on the ratification of the emergency declaration?
Mayor Adam, Bob Engler.
All right, then I am going to take this to a vote.
Mayor Adam,
Oh, yes, sorry.
Bob Engler here.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Adam. City Manager Powers, in terms of our going out of our normal purchasing and procurement methods, this is the first time in my role, in the current role, that I've been on this road. How is the city going to account and report back to us as far as the amounts and differences in the procurement?
I think I do. I'm going to answer two portions of that, and hopefully both of it, between both of those, it'll cover it. From a procurement standpoint, we have both from a procurement and a reimbursement standpoint, we established early on in this crisis, recognizing sort of where it was heading, that we established a tracking code for employee time, and we're utilizing that tracking code for reimbursement purposes. Now, it remains to be seen, given the scope and scale of this crisis, what that reimbursement source will look like and how it may emerge, but we're going to be prepared, as we always are, to recoup the cost associated with it. Procurement-wise, we're operating in our emergency operations format. We have a unit that's responsible for purchasing. City Attorney Noonan can speak to what that means in terms of waivers of different traditional purchasing requirements. Those are established when we're operating under a public health emergency.
Thank you. Just for example, state law requires, for instance, for public works type projects, competitive bidding, and traditionally things such as putting out requests for bids, going through a bidding process, but that all takes a lot of time. So those types of provisions are waived during an emergency. It's very standard during an emergency to waive those provisions. And in this case, that's exactly what will happen. So that's a good example of how the procurement regulations will be changed during this time.
That answer your question?
Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'd like to move on to this emergency declaration, and I'll need a motion, first of all, from one of my colleagues.
I move to approve the emergency declaration.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And now I'm going to go one by one for a voice vote. And Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember McCoy?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Engler?
Thank you.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Thank you. And Mayor Adam votes yes as well. So the emergency declaration is passed. We've got that business taken care of. Mr. Powers would like to make a comment.
Thank you so much, Mayor Adam. As we prepare to adjourn the meeting, I just wanted to make a reference for the public and for the council. We do have a meeting on the books slated for the 31st of March. We had an existing agenda, and obviously that agenda is going to take a different form as we move forward. So we will keep the public informed about whether that meeting will occur or not. And a lot of it will be dictated on the circumstances as they continue to evolve. So I just want to make everyone aware of that there is perhaps a high likelihood that meeting could be canceled.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Powers. All right. Well, we're ready to adjourn here. All I would say to my fellow citizens is to please remain calm, please remain thoughtful, please remain informed, but also please take this seriously. We're asking for your compliance for the rules that the Ventura County Public Health has set forth. Without a vaccine, this is our one way to slow the spread of this disease through staying away from public gatherings, through hygiene. You've heard it all. You know what to do, so we're counting on you for that. And we're also counting on you to help where you can. You've heard some volunteer opportunities tonight, and we hope you'll take advantage of those. So on behalf of the City Council, I wish my colleagues were here with me, but the circumstances just didn't allow for that. But I want to wish everyone in Thousand Oaks good health, and we're going to get through this together, and we're going to have a good outcome. So thank you very much. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.